What was the most embarrassing tantrum you've seen a grown but adult throw? My first job in high school, working at an ice cream parlor. We had 3 sizes, 2 scoops, 1 scoop and child size. Why it wasn't just large, medium and small, don't ask me. One day a guy that had to be well into his 80s slowly walks in. It was an early afternoon before the typical rush of night, so he was able to walk right up to the counter and stare at our board of flavors, toppings etc. You can see on his face he's getting irate for some reason. He's pacing quicker. Here and there you can see his mouth open to talk, but he doesn't. Finally he speaks. "I want your smallest ice cream, but it's absolutely demeaning I have to order a child size. I'm a grown man. I have children and grandchildren of my own." This goes on. I'm unable to get a word in edgewise. He keeps going and finally I interrupt. "How about this? I just give you the smallest size we have, call it a small and charge you for our cheapest ice cream." For some reason this answer wasn't acceptable. He goes back into his rant about being a grown man and is now screaming at me about how insulted he was. I again reiterate I can just give you a small ice cream, but no. Anything beneath an institutional change wasn't going to stop this guy. He just kept going. Now other customers are starting to walk in and just watch him rant, screaming, "Do I look like a child?" and things like "I have grandchildren older than you." Meanwhile he's refusing to order something else. Just consider the smallest size as small rather than child size, which was written on the board, and won't leave either. The owner now comes from the back to see what's going on because there's now a long line. This had been going on a good 10 minutes. As is usual in these situations, the owner introduces himself as the owner, which prompted the response, "Good. Your employee insulted me." As the man explained how I insulted him, the owner pivoted to the same thing I did. "Can we just call it a small and be on with it?" This made things worse. Finally, after him screaming at the owner for a few more minutes, the owner says, "You came into my shop, don't like the name I used for my ice cream sizes, berated one of my employees and are berating me. Please stop using the phrase disrespected because you're the only one being disrespectful." Usually in internet stories this is when the writer puts and everyone clapped, but no one did. The situation was just too awkward for them to acknowledge they were paying attention. The old man went to talk and the owner cut him off and just said, "Let me be frank. Tell me what will make you happy and I'll do it." The old man stood for a few seconds and just anger said, "I'll never come back here again," and walked out the door. TLDR. I got screamed at because the ice cream shop I worked at called a small a child size. Tell me what will make you happy. I'll never come back here again. What a coincidence. That's exactly what will make me happy, too. I help my cousin out on jobs when he gets in over his head. One time our uncle went out for sandwiches and got them all the way. My grown but 45-year-old cousin had a freaking meltdown on the job site and started throwing crap because his sandwich had pickles on it. He broke the windows out of his own vehicle and destroyed about $1,000 worth of materials over pickles, lol. Sounds a tad bit unstable, lol. The pickles were the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. I used to work as a manger at a wings place. A lady and a guy got incredibly upset at us when they asked for their order and we didn't have it. "We have been waiting for 30 minutes. How isn't it done? We don't have any orders in the last week with that name. I don't know what to tell you." "Well, we paid for it. Would it be under a different name perhaps?" "Oh yeah, our son ordered it. Try Jack Smith instead." "Not actually the name, but you get it." "Okay, that's not showing me up either. How about you show me your receipt and I can look up the confirmation number." The girl hands me the receipt. The son ordered their food under the name EA Sports, it's in the game. When I let them know what it was actually under and got the food for them, they legit were screaming at me and trying to say it's my fault. The dude started throwing chairs at other customers and hit the windows with a large rock. Police were called and they left. Eventually the guy came back 3 hours to yell at me and my crew more, and we called the police a second time. I pray for that son and I hope he is okay, lol. His parents seem a little off their rockers. I was at Friendly's with a group of friends. One of them brought their BF with them. We all get our treats and sit down. This dude comes to us and says, do you think I should complain about the slushie not having enough syrup? We all kinda agree that sure, it's okay to see if they can do something to fix it. He goes up there and talks to the girl at the register. I couldn't make everything, but essentially she told them that they made it the way they're told and she couldn't do anything. He takes what remains of his slushie and slams it on the counter, getting the girl full of slushie. Yells at her that she can take the drink back then. A manager tells him that he's gotta go. We all were just in shock. Like I didn't even know where to put my face, I was so embarrassed. Him on the other hand, he wasn't ashamed at all. My friend defends her BF, saying that it wasn't a big deal and they really should have fixed his drink. Really pathetic to be the most immature person in a Friendlies when there's probably a 4-year-old eating ice cream and making a mess in the booth behind you. I've posted this before, but I witnessed some lady having a full-blown tantrum in a Culver's drive-thru. I was on the headset that day, and when she pulled up to the order screen I asked for her order. She snapped back that she wasn't ready, so I told her to go ahead and order when she was ready. For whatever reason that set her off, because she again snapped back and said, you know what, just for that I will take my time. She sat silent in her car for a couple of minutes and I could hear the cars behind her start to honk. The car directly behind her must have caught onto her just sitting there refusing to order, so he pulled around her, drove up to my window and asked if he could order directly from me. The other cars in line must have noticed as well, because when I handed him his receipt they began pulling in front of the lady refusing to order and started a new line at my window ordering directly from me. The lady who refused to order went absolutely bananas. She laid on her horn, grabbed her steering wheel and started thrashing around, shaking her car violently, screaming at the top of her lungs that people were cutting in front of her. She eventually drove around to my drive-through window, gave me the finger and did a burnout. I think that was the biggest tantrum I've seen an adult throw. I feel you have met my aunt. She also makes convoluted orders and then makes up an excuse that the order given to her was wrong so she could scream at the employees and expect them to give her money back and give her more food for free. She did this to every restaurant she could, to the point she is banned everywhere. When I used to work at Best Buy, a woman was absolutely pee and threatening to sue for false advertisement because a Kindle case was $2 cheaper than what was listed in the ads with the Sunday paper. A longtime parishioner entered church on Sunday and saw a new young family sitting in her pew. She told them that they'd have to move as they were sitting in the pew she had occupied for worship services many years. As I once described, when they refused to relocate, the lady said, in full voice, for all to hear, that she wouldn't stand for their insubordination, and that she was leaving and taking her substantial pledge with her. My father-in-law gets pretty pissy when the very first pew is full. He'll find any way to squeeze his little butt into that first pew too. Like sitting in the second pew is going to make him further away from God. If he had the option to sit on the priest, he'd probably do it. The last time I was at Heathrow Airport, I witnessed a woman in her 30s, dressed in business attire, literally kicking and screaming because they wouldn't let her take an open carton of juice through the security checkpoint. I do business with a local AT&T store. I was in getting a phone for our company and this guy was trying to get an iPhone for his teenage daughter. I'm not sure what went on, but they apparently didn't have the exact phone she wanted and they were going to have to order it. That wasn't good enough, so he started having a full-blown temper tantrum saying the sales associate was ruining his daughter's birthday gift. The manager comes out to see what's going on and there's another customer who's in there, and this dude is like 6'5", goatee, bald head, roided up with full sleeve tattoos, and he says, "Hey, calm down," and the angry dad said, "Who said that?" The bald giant said, "I did," in a very angry voice, and the dad just put his head down and shut up. The manager was trying to see what was going on and the dad was like, "We're gonna go now." I wish I could say everyone clapped, but the sales associate was extremely grateful. My own mother. We were getting food at a food truck. They must have pressed the wrong button or something because she got charged for $11 when it should have been $10. My mom immediately blows up at them about it, demanding they give her back her $1. The cashier apologized profusely and said it was a mistake. They got the manager or owner or whatever to come over and help refund the money. The whole time they're trying to figure the computer out, my mom is ranting and raving about how they were overcharging her on purpose to pocket the money since she didn't tip. She calls them thieves and criminals. I straight up told her I'll give you $1 right now if you stop, and of course she says it's all about the principle though. After they fix it we leave. She keeps ranting to me about it, so I make up an excuse to leave. Later, in a text she tells me she went to the nearest police station after that and made a report against them. I very much wish I could have seen the officer's reaction. I bet they were dying laughing inside and probably threw her report away the moment she left. This woman is 40 years old. I sell safety equipment to major companies. You have to have paperwork to get discounts for this stuff. I've had multiple grown men come in, tell me they work for X, and they want the company discount. I tell them I need their forms, and they begin throwing a fit. They throw around the whole "do you know who I am" bit, and get even madder when I in fact do not know who they are. If you were such a big shot, why don't you have the form? My sister had the worst temper of anyone I've ever known. We were at the drive-thru at McDonald's. She ordered McNuggets with barbecue sauce. When we got to the window she was handed the nuggets but no sauce. So she just sat there staring expectantly at the cashier. Finally she said, "Well, are you going to give me my sauce or what?" The cashier turned to the side, away from the window. My sister said, "Excuse me, are you deaf? Where is my sauce?" The cashier said, "I'm getting it." The cashier handed over fistfuls of sauce packets and didn't do it in a friendly way. So my sister threw half of the packets directly at the face of the cashier and called her a bee. Then she drove out of there like a bat out of heck. I absolutely hated going anywhere with my sister because she regularly caused a scene over the dumbest things. Customer service for a doctor's office's credit card program. Spent 45 minutes trying to help a doctor change his password. I couldn't actually help them because every time I would tell them to do something specific they would do this stress sigh sobbing kind of thing. Would remind me every 30 seconds that he went to school for 8 years so he wouldn't have to deal with this. Mind you, he was clearly in his 20s 30s. Not an old guy that has an excuse not to know how to do this. After the 45 minutes of this rotation he finally passed the phone to his receptionist. We shared a laugh over his attitude, and we reset the password in 30 seconds. I've seen a stranger throw a tantrum because he didn't know what to order for breakfast. Asked for input, but for some reason got angry when our cashier suggested a breakfast sandwich. I remember the first time I walked into a Moe's, looked the menu, had no idea what anything was, didn't feel like asking and just walked out. Would it really have been so hard to be like Joey, normal burrito? My uncle threw a tantrum and stormed off to bed because he was the first person out when we were playing Monopoly. The following night he again was the first person out, but instead of storming off to bed he sat there and sulked because, and I quote, "Last night I didn't get any. Wonder why." Worked at river rafting place. Guy threw a fit because he didn't want to pay $20 for a shuttle ride for him and his girlfriend. He said that he should be able to pay $10 because he was bringing 25 people that weekend. I eventually got him to just pay the $20, and over the course of filling out his paperwork he said that he didn't have a reservation for the weekend. He was testing the river today to decide if he was going to bring them. So basically, I shouldn't have to pay full price. I'm giving you so much business. But also I haven't actually done any business with you yet. Archu Singberger's moment. Working retail in a game store, early 2000s. Man was attempting to return a computer game. At the time there was a no cash for open boxes, exchange for same item only policy, which was standard for years before and after. Probably still standard, which most people did the whole "okay, gimme the sealed box and now I wanna return the sealed box" thing. No one working cared, as long as the initial return was in the first 30 days. This was a game from like 8 months prior or something. Not even close. No way anyone could fudge the numbers. Guy got so pissed that he held the jewel case holding the CD up in front of the clerk's face and broke it in half, showering them with broken shards of plastic, before throwing it on the counter and leaving. I've heard stories of worse, but the image of that dude's angry face as he did it is burned into my head. Oh man, I've been dying for a question like this. Does anyone remember the Rick and Morty Szechuan sauce release at McDonald's several years ago? Anyways, my friend loves the show but couldn't go due to work, so I went to try and get some for him. There was a line of people who had been waiting for a while. Apparently some of the workers gave them out to people in the drive-thru, so they were all out and all they had were posters. A couple of guys were throwing complete temper tantrums and screaming, cussing out the workers for not properly handing out the sauce packets. After screaming at them for a good 10-15 minutes, the guy demands a poster. The worker says they have to purchase a meal in order to get the poster. Dude flips out again and orders a meal in a real condescending tone. As soon as he gets the meal and his poster, he takes his meal and starts throwing it against the walls, and then takes his 2 children with the poster and walks away while cussing at them on the way out. Next few guys in the line do the same thing. They only had like 5-8 posters. Vast majority of the people towards the front all threw baby tantrums and threw their food and drinks everywhere, making a huge mess. Luckily I recorded a decent amount of it. Absolutely insane how childish these grown men were acting over a freaking sauce packet. Most of them had their children with them too. It was honestly just so insane I couldn't believe it. And their children are absorbing all of this and learning that this is a good and okay way to behave because dad did it. The one I will always remember happened over 20 years ago. Long story slightly shorter, and this was back before 9/11. A man and his girlfriend come to the gate at the airport. There was some mix-up where the girlfriend had given her luggage to the skycap, but hadn't checked in for the flight, so she didn't have a boarding pass. The flight was oversold and there was no seat available for her. It was a flight to Washington DC and it was the last one out until the following morning. When this guy finds out she can't get on the plane, he goes ballistic. He starts literally screaming at the gate agent. In a post 9/11 world, I'm reasonably certain he would have been arrested or at least kicked out of the airport. He's going on and on about how important he is, that he's a member of some platinum club. How dare his girlfriend not get on the plane? People with the cheap tickets should be booted to accommodate her. He'll reach out to the corporate offices, etc. Basically, he was making a huge, public butt out of himself. Well, it wasn't this gate agent's first rodeo, for sure. She let him scream himself out, and when he took a breath, she looked at him and said, "There is exactly one person who can get your girlfriend on the plane, and that person is me. I suggest you take a seat. Be patient and I will see what I can do." He stated, going off again, and she said, louder than him, "I will see what I can do." Finally, he sat down. She made some phone calls, typed on her computer, and finally came over the loudspeaker saying, "This flight is overbooked. Do we have any customers willing to take a later flight for $XXX in flight vouchers?" Silence. She asked a couple more times, raising the ante, and again, silence. Now I had nowhere to be until Tuesday, so I could have easily taken a flight the next day, but I'll be damned if that butthole was going to get his way. Seems like everyone else there felt the same. No one took the offer. Eventually she called the 2 of them over and said, "I'm sorry, I've offered the max amount of vouchers I can and no one is taking it. I need to start boarding now. If she needs to get out tonight, she can try another airline, or I can put her on tomorrow's flight right now." The guy was like "FK you" and walked off with his very embarrassed girlfriend in tow as he was muttering under his breath, "Bye bye." If the guy hadn't been such a first class dong to the gate agent, who quite literally had nothing to do with the situation, she could have taken my seat and been on her way. Nothing to do with an butthole, but I took an offer of $500 cash, first class ticket the next morning, a hotel stay, and a free dinner voucher for someone trying to get home to see their dying father. I went to a freaking Brad Paisley concert with my wife, and some guy with a group of people were like, "You guys are in our seats." We had floor tickets, so I look at my tickets and I was like, "Nope, we're in the right spot." He kept arguing with me and demanded to see my tickets. I refused and ignored him. His group walked off. He got an usher involved, so the usher came, asked for my ticket, and I showed her, and she showed the other guy where he was supposed to be sitting. Dude mean mugged me the entire show. He actually had closer seats than we did. Like, enjoy the freaking show, dipshit. Worked at McDonald's in high school. There were a few, but one stands out above all of the others. It's lunchtime and we are busy. The Filet-O-Fish is not a particularly popular sandwich, so we only ever had a couple pieces of fish ready to avoid having to throw them away. Dude comes to the drive-thru and orders 4. I kid you not, as his order is popping up on our screen, the hold timer for the 2 fish we had already made was going off. We have to fry 2 regardless, so we decide to just make all 4 fresh. Manager apologizes and tells the guy to pull forward and wait. He's not happy, but he does. Meanwhile, we keep serving people who didn't order fish. After the third or so car gets their order and leaves, this dude is in the lobby demanding to see the manager. He wants to know why he is still waiting since we're clearly serving other people. Manager explains that none of those people ordered fish, and that the fish will be ready in a couple minutes. Apologizes again for the wait. Dude is P. Starts yelling about how it's ridiculous that we have no fish ready. Manager explains how the whole timer went off, and she wasn't about to serve anyone expired food. Since we had to make a couple anyway, we're making you all 4 fresh. Most people would be happy they weren't served questionable food. Not this guy. This guy went ballistic. He starts yelling about how we should have served him the 2 we had, and we shouldn't serve anyone else until he has his order, blah blah, you get the idea. Then he threatens my manager with physical violence if he is not served his order right now. She tells him he needs to go out to his car right now or she'll be calling the police. Dude storms out of the restaurant, slamming the door so hard behind him that he broke it. A few seconds later, we hear screeching tires as he leaves the parking lot, without his fish. Reinforcing that only psychopaths order Filet-O-Fish. My father. Probably more to do with the fact I was related to him and that it ruined a day trip, but here it is. So at the time we, mother, father, teenage brother and preteen me, lived close to a great beach and there was a small amusement park next to it. A variety of issues meant going there as a family for a day out was a special treat and something that was highly anticipated. We hadn't decided if we would do the beach, doing some boogie boarding, or the amusement park, water slide, crazy golf, so took the boards with us, but in the end decided not to use them. This was very bad. My mother was a deficient human being for bringing them with us and commuting the crime of bringing unnecessary items on a day trip. In the car park in full view of everyone there he was screaming. He threw his hat on the ground and was jumping up and down clenching his fists as if he was having a vertical seizure. Of course we knew not to say anything because he would just become violent and had to walk on eggshells for the rest of the day. I have since gone no contact with him, and he was shocked, convinced that someone had manipulated me into it, because he never did anything that would make someone not want to be in a relationship with him. Of course not. Being the center of the universe, he can't see himself. I was on a flight waiting to take off when they announced we would be a little delayed. The grown woman sitting behind me started yelling profanities about how she was going to get stuck at the airport and couldn't possibly get back home without staying the night at the airport in Irvine, Texas. Everyone around her ignored her since we were all obviously in the same boat and also had no idea how our trips would be rerouted yet. Most people would be totally fine since the delay wasn't that long and there are so many flights going out of DFW every day. Anyway, we take off and then I reclined my seat after we reached altitude. Cue temper tantrum number 2. She starts kicking my seat over and over. Mind you, I am visibly pregnant. Not that it should matter since I paid for a seat that reclines. So I said to my husband sitting next to me, the kid sitting behind me is kicking me, because I thought it was one of her kids. He looked back and said, no, that's an old butt lady, and we didn't hear a peep from her again all flight. I did take a look back one time and saw that her seat was reclined as well. Gem of a woman. Worked electronics at Walmart during the summer. Super busy with only 3 associates and probably 20 people all wanting help getting phones off security pegs or had questions about different products. This one lady decided that she was the most important customer there and just started screaming at the top of her lungs, help. Somebody help me. No one is helping me. We called a supervisor and they helped her leave the store immediately. My mom works in retail and told me a similar story. Woman was screaming for help in the bath department, crying bloody murder. All employees in earshot rushed to her thinking she was having a medical emergency. Help me please, somebody help me, I need help. She wanted to know where the mirrors were. That was it. Worked at a vet clinic. Doctor owned it and pretty much refused to do anything but appointments, surgeries, and hide things from the sew at the office. Once day they heard the receptionist page twice for assistance. TBH. I think they were for 2 separate things. They were just close enough together that doctor thought it was for the same thing. And I got to see her stomping towards the back holding the leash of a larger dog. Why am I paying you people when you don't do your jobs? Where is everyone? It's not my job to do a nail trim, or something like that. Demanded to know why I didn't go up. Replied that I was finishing paperwork for her first surgery in room 2 and was then planning on running the blood work. Per policy it was supposed to be done as soon as the human signed the papers. But if she wanted me to do the nail trim and stale trim, where's B? Second tech on shift, in room 1 with your first appointment, should be out to get you soon. Where's Dr. C? Doing their first appointment in room 3. Where's D? Now this one was interesting. D was physically disabled and hired with the understanding that he would only walk small dogs and let large dogs out into the run poop yard out back. His social worker made it very clear he was not to restrain or do any heavy lifting. In room 3 helping Dr. C. By this time the office manager had come back to see what the yelling was about and took Dr. to do the nail trim themselves. But Dr. seriously looked so shocked that maybe we were right and needed more help in the mornings. This happened about 13 years ago at this point. I was working customer service as a tech for a large cellular telecom. At this time we still did technical software updates to phones and small basic repairs. Oftentimes phones would just be swapped for refurbished devices we kept in stock if still under warranty. If we didn't have one in stock we overnighted the device to you free of charge. Basically if your phone was destroyed you wouldn't have a cell phone for around 12 hours. Unless you had something else to activate on the line. Also free. Apparently, these services were not enough for one lady who literally threw a tantrum like a small child because we would just give her a brand new different phone and then sat on my countertop refusing to leave the store. This lady wanted us to give her a different device when her device was out of warranty and we were still replacing it free of charge for her. People for whatever reason don't understand how warranties work. If you bought a Samsung it's a Samsung warranty. You don't get to switch to LG. She periodically would scream and throw objects at staff and then try calling corporate customer service over and over. She called the police on me at the store a few times. Eventually, the police came and she was escorted out. Never saw it myself but it got reported on and I wish I saw it. Actor Alec Baldwin was on a NYC street, screaming into his cell phone at someone. Some black lady walked past him and stopped and said, "Alec Baldwin, is that you? Acting like a fool. Screaming like that? What the heck is wrong with you?" A grown man. He sheepishly apologized and that ended it. That woman is a legend. I work for a utility company and happened to be working down a very narrow country lane. The company had paid the local council to have the road closed to carry out the work. Pre-work warning signs were put up 2 weeks in advance letting everyone know that it would be closed on a particular set of days. We even sent letters a few days before as a reminder of the closure. Then this happens. We arrive on site, set up barriers around the work area, cut out where we needed to excavate, then used a mini excavator to break up the tarmac road and start digging. Bear in mind that the road is only 3.2 meters wide and we have a 2-meter wide hole dug up. Then a lunatic from down the road decides it's time for her to go shopping. She drives right up to the front of our van and sits revving the engine for a few minutes. Of course we can't even hear this because we're working behind the van and trailer and operating a digger. She then starts beeping the horn. Heard but ignored. Few more minutes of the horn. Then she starts screaming out of the car window to move this freaking van now. Heard again but ignored. As per company policy, to not interact with people kicking off. She then gets out of the car, comes storming up the road, gets to the barriers and screams to freaking move because she needs to get out. So I calmly ask her if her car can fly while pointing to the large hole in the road. She then questions my parentage and storms back to her car. We decide it's break time and get in the van for a coffee and watch the lunatic trying to reverse her car. In her temper she managed to knock down the brick pillar at the side of her neighbor's drive while trying to turn around. Finally managed to get turned around and wheel spins off up the road. Complaint lodged against us claiming that we were abusive and threatening towards her. Luckily the house closest to where we were working had camera footage of the entire thing. I saw a woman throw a tantrum on a bus because this kid had a bag on a chair. This is during COVID when we couldn't sit directly next to people on the bus. And this woman was throwing a straight up tear-blown tantrum that the kid has to move his bag because pregnant people can't get COVID. Looks like I might need to start giving out some vaccines of my own. For the good of society. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.